Here's part 2 of our most recent Legal AI Live on LinkedIn. If you missed part 1, make sure to go subscribe at legalailive.com and check out our YouTube channel or Legal AI Live on any podcast app to catch part 1. Follow the Legal AI Live page on LinkedIn to watch us live. Without further delay, here's part 2. Yeah, and just to remind folks, this is a live show. And so just to prove that we're not AI, Jason and Hassan in the chat, thanks for participating. And Nick and Damien for engaging in the chat. Thank you very much. So we're a live show. So if you want, questions answered live, that's something that we could always do too. But we're seeing you're chatting. So thank you. I mean, delegation is the word that comes to mind for me for the skills they need to learn, which is kind of hard to do if you've never done it before, or you've never been part of a team. If you have and you've been delegated to, if that was good delegation or bad delegation or how it made you feel. And if you're having trouble, pick whatever AI tool you like using. And if you haven't used any of them yet, Perplexity, use Perplexity is my recommendation. Is just be like, okay, I need to delegate this thing. How do I delegate this to AI, right? So and that's delegating. So just use any AI tool that you have access to and start figuring out how to better delegate. And what I like about Perplexity is you could say, okay, what's the best tools for me to do this with? And it will make some, I think, really good suggestions. That's it for me on that.
Carolyn.
I think I would like for newer law students to have familiarity with agentic qualities and being able to put together simple workflows and hook them up together. And that's just my own selfish thing. I really have so little patience for I hate that stuff. I have little patience for it. And so I expect law students to know more than me. And so if they had the capability, just the understanding of what a workflow is and what AI agents can do and could set things up and troubleshoot that, I think that would be a really very helpful skill to any law firm.
Nick.
So for law students, I'm going to go a different way and have them work on some soft skills of just communication, because I think that is going to improve how they use AI. And probably the other thing I would do, so whether they're texting or using voice for their interactions with AI, I want them to work on their communication skills, because that's going to come in handy with them dealing with their clients as well, right? So it's always one of the most important soft skills is interpersonal communication. The other one that I have an interest in them learning is AI efficiency. I don't think we're spending a lot of time on this yet, but I've got a litigator buddy of mine who was using AI to write pleadings. This is his testing, right? And we were going back and forth while he was describing this to me, and he had it pump out the pleadings answer. I don't think it was a complaint. And he's like, well, it got it all wrong. And then I had to go back and correct the whole thing. And it took me more time than it should have taken. So we've heard this phrase, verification burden. So I think immediately identifying that there is a verification burden problem that is costing you more time, and how do we become more efficient with the use of AI? And maybe I don't need to do the whole answer. Maybe I needed to give me an outline of something or a summarization of something that I can then go and correct. Those are the two.
Great. Greg.
So I think this flows a little bit, Dennis, from what you and Gio were saying in response to the last question, but at least through a litigation lens, a lot of what litigators do is sort of backward looking. You're trying to figure out what the facts were or what a court decided on a particular issue in the past. But I think the skill for new lawyers to really cultivate is trying to use AI as a crystal ball and really trying to predict the future, and whether you should settle a case, whether an argument is going to fly with a particular judge, those kinds of things. And I think it's a pretty profound mindset change. There are certainly tools that kind of point in that direction that we've had for some time, but I just think it's going to become more pervasive, and that's where legal work the bulk of it is going to be done, because the AI can just process the facts and process the law and give you whatever you want.
And I think, Greg, that's one of the things that's exciting about what you guys are doing at AAA is, kind of, creating a place where those kinds of things can happen by really creative users. George.
I've interviewed a couple of people for law clerk positions and just spoken to law students a lot whenever I get a chance. And I'm blown away by how much they are not learning about AI in school. I don't know, Dennis, your school seems to be a little different in that direction, but the only way they're learning it is to use it themselves. It's like, don't use it because you need to learn the law without it, which is stupid. You know, it would, how do you learn how to ride a bike without having a bike? You need to have access to the tools and you have to learn how to use it. And so in doing that, I think that they have to become comfortable with it as a companion. That no matter what they are doing, just like we should be doing, or we do every day in our lives, AI is a more and more a companion with us. It's on our phone. We're using it to answer questions. Google searches and SEO are becoming a thing of the past. Everything's looking at what AI is going to lead us to. And unless the students become not just comfortable with it, but how about this? They should be intimate with it. And I've talked to some people who actually use it as a therapist, just to talk to somebody because they have nobody else to talk to. So that's how intimate AI is becoming in people's lives. And a law student has to be able to do that. And they have to be able to, sorry, Nick, but I think they're going to have to learn how to talk more with AI than they are with other people, because the AI is going to be the one communicating with the other people as well. So I think our law schools, for the most part, are falling apart at that, falling down on the job, and they should be picking up the slack. And the way they are going to learn it is by sitting in an office that uses it proficiently.
Damien.
I think I'm going to build upon Matthew's really good point about delegation. That is, people that use AI the best that I know are good managers, because the best vibe coders I know have 3 tabs of Claude Code agents running simultaneously. And sometimes those agents are actually collaborating with each other. That's effectively a team. And good managers know how to be able to handle teams. And good managers are able to ask their subordinate, whether that subordinate is an associate or an AI agent, ask that subordinate, hey, what clarifying questions do you have that I could be able to help you in your task? What are some other expanded ideas to make my initial query better? Now that we've jammed for a little bit, now summarize back to me what you're going to be doing for me before you leave my office. That's what a good manager does. That is a good partner for an associate. And that's also what good AI people do. So I would say that it's hard to teach a law student how to be a good manager. Much like Gio said, how do you learn to ride a bike? You just ride a bike. So I think those law students need to be good managers for AIs, because they certainly haven't been good managers otherwise. But I think they also have to have 3 attributes. One is trust. That is, you be able to say that your problem, client, is now my problem. That AI is not going to be able to do that. Intuition. You're not going to have AI speaking in your ear as you're arguing in court or as you're around the negotiating table. And then number 3 is integrity. The opposing counsel knows that you're not going to screw them over, and so does the judge. So I think those 3 aspects, I stole those from Jordan Furlong. I'm going to put in the link, a really good link. But I think those 2 things: be a good manager, trust, integrity, and intuition.
And Ben, how about you?
Yeah, what he said. Actually, I will do a variation of that, which is I'm going to once again +1 Carolyn on this, because I think, especially as we're seeing more and more move towards agentic AI, one of the gaps that we're seeing is that people don't have a very clearly defined SOP on how to do things. And so they're talking about setting up an agentic AI, but they can't clearly define what the workflow is that they need it to do. And so I think if I'm going to, call out an AI agentic skill, I think process mapping and being able to clearly define what is the process you want the AI to do to accomplish that task. Because otherwise you're just, nothing wrong with vibe coding. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to suggest there isn't, but being able to clearly map out the SOP is going to be, I think, a key to success with agentic.
Yes, such great thoughts there. What I've come down to for my class is, and I don't know that this is the right word, but I think the useful skill is, because this translates to people as well, is to be able to interrogate the results of the AI and to say, can it be trusted? Where did it go wrong? What did it leave out? And that leads you to things that I'm doing these days, and that Damien mentioned too. It's like, what was left out? Let's AI act as a red teaming group and look at this in a structured way and tell me what might be wrong. I have an AI protocol that looks at the statistics behind things and say, here's this article. Do these statistics make sense? And why don't they? And they're not definitive answers, but they're going to get you off this thing where you say, you read an article, and I saw this thing yesterday, said, law firms are spending 40% more on legal technology this year. And I'm like, how can that possibly be? Like, how can it possibly be? Because you had this big increase at the beginning of COVID in remote work. How can you get to 40%? And I ran my protocol on it, and it said, this makes no sense whatsoever. And there's nothing that's, AI is better at or that you appreciate more than when it agrees with you, of course. But this is it's giving me actual information that I can rely on, saying like, I have this vibe that says these numbers are off. It's actually looking at them and telling me what's wrong, and then the assumptions that are made in the article and what I shouldn't rely on. So I think that I want to go for a minute here to, where does AI most consistently fail or create risk in real legal work today? So, and I don't want to just say like, oh, hallucinating cases, because I think that's, a small piece of it. But where do you see the consistent fails in the risks out there? So, Matthew.
All right. Like any good politician, I might be able to take any question and answer it in a way that has been my life's work for the last 4 years. I think the greatest risk is to the revenue of firms that don't adapt to their business model in the age of AI efficiencies. Even there's been some posting on this lately. There's LinkedIn is wild, but there's been a lot of articles and blog posts lately about AI efficiencies and its effect it's going to have on the billable hour. And so if you're a lawyer that's never stopped for a moment and thought critically about your business model because you didn't have to, just ask your favorite AI tool, what are other ways that private practice firms can make money that's not billing by the hour? And quickly you'll see a paradigm shift where, now I'm incentivized to leverage these tools or to try to reach a result faster, be it through actual, in litigation or mediation or whatever, or just advising your client. And you'll see that will lower the risk of your law firm going out of business or losing associates to starting their own AI-powered, AI-native law firms.
Cool. Carolyn. Well, you're not hearing Carolyn.
Currently muted.
Sorry about that. So I think the risk is something lawyers aren't used to dealing with, which is the moving target. We're very accustomed to dealing with precedent, and it's always changing. So one of the things I think AI is very bad with now is coming up with new arguments. It will just make something up and then say clearly, because it doesn't have the evidence or the reasoning to support it. And I think that in turn leads lawyers to assume that it's always going to be bad. And I think that the risk is that if you don't check back in a couple of months or a couple of weeks, it will have changed. So I guess to your question about what it does poorly, I think right now what it does poorly is generating new arguments broadly. And I think the risk is that if you don't continue to follow up on it, it's going to change under your nose and you're going to be left behind. So that's kind of like what it does badly and what the risks are.
Great. Nick?
So the risk of failure for me is, it's always the user. It's never the tool. And my biggest concern continues to be lawyers putting in personally identifying information of clients or customers for me. But I think that's the greatest risk is, not knowing what's in the terms of service and putting in a lot of information that one day, and I promise you one day is going to be exposed in some sort of a breach. Like that is the greatest risk that I think is available. And that's on the user side, not on the tool side.
And Greg.
So I've tried just about everything to tune LLMs on my own writing to have it write more like me. And I guess the thing that I would say, and maybe this sounds kind of crazy to say, but I think all of these tools are really not very good writers. Never have I ever output something from an AI and just been able to use it without editing it, whether it's our newsletter or an email or a proposal for something. And it's very frustrating, and just reprompting the model, it's a very blunt instrument, and it's a game of whack-a-mole where it might fix one sentence, but it's going to mess up another one. And so that's been a constant source of frustration for me. And it's the thing that these tools do. They write, and yet they're not that good at it.
Yeah, it's really a great insight, and something I think I've made progress on. But I agree with you. I just can't leave what it does untouched, except for transmittal emails. And there are some other things. What about you, George?
I think there's a lack of creativity. It's almost like we're getting everybody who puts a case in is getting the same response. So there's no let's. You have to give me some time to think about this, Dennis. Throwing it at us at the last minute is kind of hard. But courts decide cases based on the story in the framing. It's not just simply A, B, C, D, like you get out of chat, a bullet point. You have to frame it in a way, and you have to deal with bad facts. And AI is not telling a story, because a jury is going to want to hear a story, even though, kind of interesting, we could frame voir dire now we could ask AI to help us create a voir dire. And it'll even create a voir dire using David Ball's and Friedman's books on the reptilian instincts and jury selection. It'll even include that, but it won't create a story. And I think just because something is accurate, and even if you verify the case law, the trier of the fact is going to want to hear a story. And I think that's where the AI is going to fall on its face.
Damien.
I'm going to build upon Gio and also Nick, where you could imagine arguing you are a great lawyer in the storytelling vein of Clarence Darrow or David Boies, because the AI knows who Clarence Darrow is and who David Boies is. So then if you want that good storytelling, maybe that falls part of it. And I would say that to Dennis's original question about, how does AI consistently fail and create risk for legal work today? I think that's a bit like asking, how do wrenches fail? Because wrenches don't hammer very well. Well, that's not the wrench's fault, right? That's the person using the wrong tool for the job, because wrenches don't hammer very well. So I think that I'm going to build upon Nick to say the user needs to give the AI context. And that context includes cases, statutes, and regulations. That's the law. And then combine that with your client's facts in your notes, in your transcripts. And so I think the fail is users not giving the AI the necessary context, not giving it the necessary law and the facts to be able to get a good output. So I would say that I would question the question in the first place. I'd say that just don't use wrenches to hammer.
Right. Ben.
What he said. I'm going to actually circle back to a sort of specific example, and something I was kind of talking about earlier when I was talking about something I've been experimenting with. I find that the AI, and it's not just a Copilot thing, but Copilot's the one that this problem happened with today, has a curious problem with relative dates. And by which I say the task I was trying to have it do is I was setting up a scheduled prompt that would give me a regular update on what's new in different areas that I'm responsible for tracking, right? So it's basically basically create a little newsletter for me. What's new this last month in this area, right? In case there's stories I missed. And I did that. and it's bringing me back stuff from October. It's bringing me back stuff from last July, right? It's like, okay, I said last month. I said, what's new? I even told it what's new since January 1st, which is usually a fairly reliable way to give it a date scope. It still was pulling back stuff from October, from last year. And now that's not always a big deal, but there might be situations where the date range really, really matters to the question you're asking. And if you're not aware that sometimes the AI has a little bit of trouble with the basic calendar, that's a fail that seems to still be happening and that could trip some people up in certain circumstances. Now, in my case, it wasn't that important. It was just meant I was getting more noise than signal. But but there you go. That's an issue that they still haven't managed to fix. And I've seen it with various ChatGPT, with Copilot, with Gemini. It seems to be endemic.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Ben, because I've been running into that a lot. So I've created this AI chief of staff. And so one of the things I do is to plan my week. And so there's a couple of things that will and to do some planning, for the year. So in December, I would say, in January, I'm going to do this. And it'd come back to me and say, this is great because this gives you a whole year to plan. And then I have to go like, oh, no, today, this is the date. Or it would say, okay, so this is on Monday, Tuesday, and we'll have like the wrong day on it. And you're going like, this is the stuff, this will actually infuriate lawyers because you're going, well, wait, I can't even rely on that. And I did like a little inquiry on it, and it said, well, I kind of made that assumption because the last training date was in 2024. So, but I was, and it also very politely and apologetically says it was wrong, which doesn't do any good. And I just think about lawyers who say, if you can't even get the dates for this week right, then how can I rely on other things? And then also, if I say to it, plan out my week, and here are these things I plan to do. And then 2 days later, I say, okay, here's what I've done the first 2 days. Let's like readjust this. And it forgets all the appointments that I had. Then you're like, well, why am I trusting it on timelines? Why am I trusting it on the other things that I have? And that's why I think, for me, that's why my focus these days is on two things. So one is persona protocols, where I'm trying to say, just in going beyond context engineering to say, like, I'm telling you like who the persona that you are going to use is, and I'm telling you what the protocol that persona has, like what it knows, what its perspectives, what its techniques are. And I'm trying to use that to tune the results that I get in a number of ways. And then I'm also interrogating the heck out of the results, the red teaming, the other stuff, to say, what else might be out there? What could be wrong? Those kinds of things, just to kind of see where some of the limitations are. And if you don't do that, you're in trouble. And I know I'm going a little long on this one, but I did want to make this point, is that I sometimes tell people that, like, the rude awakening when you are a lawyer is the first time you run into a really good lawyer who's really prepared. You're just like, oh my God, like I'm in the wrong profession. And you can kind of cycle through this 2x2 chart that says, if in their own way, an unprepared bad lawyer is difficult too, but you sort of have these different things. And AI kind of fits in these middle categories where it is actually give the illusion of being prepared, but it's not a good lawyer. And so I try to analogize to thinking how I deal with lawyers in that category, and that can be a useful way to go. So, Matthew, I think we have to do the lightning round, which is one tip from each of us for the audience for this week. You want to start us off?
Yep. My tip is a simple one and quick. Go to techshow.com. Get your tickets for ABA Tech Show at the end of March. And if you want, and go to all the speakers, but I'll be teaching about Google Workspace and Gemini AI tools like Notebook LM. That's my talk. So register, come see me talk at Tech Show in March. Thanks.
Carolyn.
Tip is turn on the unmute. My tip would be, I've been doing more experiments and documenting them at myshingle.com under AI resources. So check them out because they are very time consuming to put together.
Cool. Nick.
have fun with it. I mean, it's new. It's just play with it. Have fun with it. Have it tell you jokes. Do something so that you're learning from it. That's my tip. I probably should pitch something that sounds like what we're doing here. So you can find me at experts.com. But for the AI, just, just try it and start thinking of ways. Ask it how you should use it in your practice. I think George or Greg mentioned that earlier. That's where you got to start playing with it and have fun with it. You won't do it if you're not having some fun with it. So enjoy it.
Greg.
So I'll just say, if you live in a metro area of any size, try to find AI related events or meetups and go to them. I went to an event that Anthropic and Every held in Brooklyn last week, and it was just amazing to geek out with people. Similar to the dynamic here, but for people who are watching, you can have these sorts of conversations with people from all different walks of life who are looking at these issues from different angles, maybe even non-lawyers, and it can just be incredibly edifying.
George.
I don't know if I'm going to be profound or not, but it's to use AI to check your thinking, not to replace it. If you use AI as the first step in the process, these muscles up here never develop. We get a lawyer who's a mechanic and not creative. And I think the future for lawyers is still going to be on the human creative side.
Yep. Damien.
I would say use voice, whether it's Whisperflow or even just OpenAI. Just every tool has a little microphone. Click on it to get stuff from your brain into text as fast as possible. I type fast at 125 words a minute, but I speak faster at 300 words per minute. And that's 300. That's twice as fast that context can get in there. And the more context you give, the better responses. Any lawyer who's used Dragon Naturally Speaking, this is heads and tails above that. Use brain to text and use it in Whisperflow or whatever the tool uses.
Only 300 words a minute you speak, Damien? I feel like it's 1,000.
It's true. I'm working on it. I'm going to get faster.
I must be getting older because my older brain is not processing it at 300 words a minute.
This is being transcribed, so you can read it.
Can you use double speed on your on the recording? Ben.
I would say figure out what personalization, custom instructions that your preferred tools allow you to do and play with those. Because just using the generic out of the box ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini is fine, but it's a very vanilla experience. And I think you're going to find that you get a ton more value and a better experience when you've customized it, whether it's by putting in custom instructions, like in Copilot, you can go into settings and do personalization and give it custom instructions. But also if you're creating custom GPTs or agents, I've had a lot of success with creating Word documents where I explain sometimes 10-page long Word documents explaining context and all the things I think the agent should know, and then uploading that document to the agent for it to refer to in our interactions. And so figure out what kind of personalization and context you can give your AI and see how that can improve your experience.
I have a tip on prompt engineering and context engineering. And it's also about delegation, which is, why bother to create your own prompts these days? What I do is I just say, assume you're an expert in prompt creation, and creating great prompts for AI. And here's what I want to accomplish with this prompt. And here's what it looked like. Give me 3 examples of prompts I might use to do that. And then you can also say, give me sample results from those prompts, and then you can evaluate them, and boom, you're done. Like, why, that's a delegation. Why do you need to think that when the AI can tune the prompts for each of the AI's own quirks? Matthew, you want to take us out?
Yep. Thanks, everybody, for coming today. We are at time. And so I just want to remind folks that if you are catching us right at the end here, that we are on YouTube. Search Legal AI Live. We're on all podcast apps. Search Legal AI Live. And then you can go to legalailive.com where we publish these. We publish these in 2 parts. So if 1 hour is too long for you or you want to watch us, except for Damien at 2x speed, you could go to all those places and listen to the rest of us a little bit faster. And thanks, everybody, so much for coming. We'll be back on most likely second Friday of February. Thanks, everyone. All right. Let's close out the live stream. And if you guys have to go for it. Thanks again.